Hello.
Good morning.
Hi.
Evening, everyone.
Well, hello.
Brandel's here, floating in nether space. Dre's sitting between two orbs.
I'm going to upgrade them to cubes soon.
Christine, how are you doing?
I'm good. I finally was able to join. I'm visiting my sister on the West Coast, so I'm in your time zone, Julian.
It makes it easier, I guess.
Yeah.
Amazing. Julia, hi. Good to see you. What time zone is Buenos Aires in? That's like East Coast? What is that, 3 hours?
Yeah, I think so. Here is like 1 p.m.
Okay, it's 4 hours.
Yeah, so it's like lunch break.
Perfect. Works out.
A Friday, it's sunny. Couldn't be better.
Yeah, amazing. It's so nice to see Kemp again. It's been a bit.
Camp.
Be back in the car. You
Yeah, like surrounded by buildings in a random parking lot.
Amazing. You and Philip should meet up. You should drive your cars to one another.
like
Where's
parallel to
Philip?
each other. Do the thing where one car goes one way, one car goes the other way. You roll down the windows and talk about stuff.
I think that infiltrates everybody's thinking, the binary nature of highways. You're either going my way or the opposite way.
Yeah, that's right. Or orthogonal, I guess, if you're crossing that bridge.
Yeah, it starts just I'm on the right road or the wrong road or something,
Why is everyone going that way?
Yeah. What's good
Or,
about that? What's
yeah.
over
Or
there?
I'm glad I'm not going that way. That's the Los Angeles vibe. I'm glad. Ooh, man.
I just came from there. It's no good.
That's right. Yeah, all the ice cream's melted. Too late.
Promise of the internet, of course, is that the next click will be better than the page you're on. Somehow related.
Nice. Well, we got one sign up for side project chair this week. Normally we have three. I'm sort of chalking that up to like the summer I don't know, just the summer. Um so I'll just say this. Mercedes is gonna share, but if you have something that you kind of, you know what, let me just throw this out there. Um Keep that, you think about that. Because then we'll have all the time to do that, and you'll get like amazing, awesome feedback on your side project. Okay, cool. So I think enough people are here that we can get started. What do you think, Trey? Is it okay to get started?
I approve on the start.
All right. Nice. So, Mercedes, I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Yes, well, thank you. And hello, everyone. I need just permission to share my presentation.
Yep. Let me find out where they put that. I always get
So
confused.
much pressure on me because I'm the only one who want to present this, but I'm so
It's going to
glad
be
to.
great. I would be. That's a win, because it's
Yeah.
like we'll kind of go over and it'll lead into all kinds of interesting discussions, as opposed to me being like, okay, we got to move on to the next one.
Okay, yes.
Awesome.
So I'm going to share this. So, well, I'm going to start. It's okay to start? Yes. So, well, thank you for this space. Today, I'm here to introduce Katari Andes, a platform that turns real signals of change into strategic clarity We believe that intelligence should be alive, collective, and grounded in context. That's why we are building living intelligence from the global south to inform decisions that are not only effective, but also shared, regenerative, and future-oriented. Katari Andes is co-founded by Catalina Div, that is here also, and myself, Mercedes Barrera. This project was recognized by the School of International Futures as a part of NGFP Fellows Cohort 2024. And it all starts with a powerful question. What if decision-making was guided by real contextual intelligence sourced from the global south and aligned with long-term global challenge? We think that most strategic tools today are still based on market intelligence, short-term, fragmented, and profit first, but we need something else. At Katari Andes, we are shifting toward collective well-being intelligence, systemic, connected, regenerative, and crucially trained on the diverse realities and knowledge systems of Latin America. It's not just a new lens, it's a new operating system for navigating change. This is the structural gap we are addressing. There's no existing system that gathers, organizes, and connects real signals of change, emerging trends, and strategic frameworks from the global south and with global applicability. So we are building that system, not just for visibility, but for action. So we launched our MVP in June 2025, so recently, and in just a few months, we have published over 900 signals of change, detect more than 50 emerging trends, reach 183 registered users, and surpassed 9,000 visits to the platform. And these yearly results confirm a clear demand for accurate, contextual, and actionable intelligence to support decision making. So every week we update the platform with new signals of change, all organized by topic, territory, and strategic challenge. We are moving beyond strategic trend reports toward a living, evolving intelligence system. Katari Andes is more than trend detection, is situated dynamic intelligence designed to support context-driving, high-impact decisions in real time. It's a living radar, and we're just getting started. So in this session, we want to share the Katari Andes platform, this MVP, and listen, of course, to your feedback and explore together what comes next. We are envisioning our next big step, a discovery engine powered by AI, built on our living system of signals, trends, and strategic frameworks. Our aim is to strengthen how we detect change, uncover patterns, and guide better decisions, always grounded in our core values, ethics, inclusion, territorial perspective, feminism, and the colonial vision, and a commitment to collective well-being. Alongside the technical roadmap that we have, we also want to reflect on the challenge and aesthetics of AI-generated content and its ethical implications and its potential to shape the future of creativity. So to make this possible, we are focused on validating our business model with public and private actors, scaling technology towards a representative and ethical AI, investing in usability, personalization, and advanced visualization, and connecting with strategic networks for international reach. The impact we seek, democratizing access to foresight tools, closing the gap between data and strategic action, strengthening territorial capacities, and expanding a regenerative, multi-scale, multi-actor intelligence. Because we think that the future doesn't need more information, it needs living intelligence situated to act. So let's explore what we will. I invited you to let's explore this and co-create what comes next. I stopped sharing this. I'm gonna share with you katariandes.com. You can also go there if you want to navigate with me this. So this is Katari Andes. Welcome to katariandes.com. Here you have our homepage. From here, you can navigate through our key intelligence lawyers, signals, the last signals of change, emerging trends, the latest trends, and strategic frameworks like SDGs, global threats, and stakeholders profiles. We call this structure our living intelligence system, always evolving, always rooted in context. So I'm going to start with our core radals of signals. Here we create and publish short, actionable pieces of intelligence, real events, projects, technology, or shifts from Latin American and beyond. That reflects to us that emerging dynamics with potential for transformation. For example, each signal is clearly structured by a concise title, a strategic description, source, region, country, relate SDGs, and the Katari solution that it connects. These signals are updated weekly and are fully searchable. So users can trace patterns, compare actions across territories, and detect blind spots. This is a section for that we promote to develop the creativity of the users also. And then here you have trends. We detect 50 trends and 51 trends. In fact, we detect the last week we updated one more, indigenous art on the rise. Over time, signals, we accumulate signals, different kinds of signals, and detect clear patterns. That's where our emerging trends sections comes in. Each trend is a direction of collective action built for dozens of real words of signals. For example, green education, psychedelia to heal, for example. I'm going to share this. Every trend is mapped with a global challenge it addresses, that maturity level of movement, and the threats that it mitigates. For example, what is important to act, the evidence that they mention the problem, who is already acting, that directions of impact revealed by the signals. You can explore the signals in detail, and then you can start making an impact that enables you to act with context, not just information, which each disease is contribute this trend and actionable ideas according to your profile. Here you have a lot of so much to explore, I think, and this is an invitation to all of you discover what interesting that you have in here. So another one, ecosystem economics, for example, and the same one. You have some keywords inside, maturity level, what is this about, what is important to act, and the relationship with threats and their evidence, who is already acting, and the signals in details. Then you have also another way to explore. Here, our proposal is to guide complex decisions. Katari Andes organize intelligence around three major frameworks: impact profile, global threats, and SDGs framework. For example, global threats, this is our own framework of structural risk of the present with Latin American emphasis. This allows quick filtering and navigate. For instance, for example, you can water stress, that is a huge threat that Latin America affected. Water stress and the threats in real time with our constant monitor here that you can find the evidence, and emerging trends that mitigate this threat today, most recently, and of course all, and the related threats that you can explore also. Then we have a Katari GTP, and this is a beta model that an expert with our investigation. And then you can find here aliens. We think that collective well-being is better or is powerful when it's collective. And where we have also an alliance with Latin Futures Association, and we monitoring constantly around 4 main pillars today. For example, well-being of future generations, modern human perspectives, affirmations of Latino identity, valuation of ancestral knowledge, for example. One of these, and reveals instead of signals of change how this investigation is evolving constantly. And then you have how to use, and this is our business model today for subscription that you can explore also. And here you have our method if you want to know much more about how this conceived or how we see this this project. So we work, how to say this? We work at the intersection of future studies, collateral research, and transformative narratives with ethics of collective well-being. This constant monitoring of signals of change, the clear path of actions that we identify that calls emerging trends, and the actionable things that you can do with this. And for last, this is a living research in constant motion. That's what we want to offer to our users. This project is non-linear. Each new discovery can reconfigure what the previous one. A signal can escalate and become the trend. A threat can mutate. So this is an open investigation, always update. So I invited all of you to explore katariandes.com. I'm gonna stop sharing for seeing all of you.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. That's my mind's all going all over the place. It's beautiful. Congratulations to you for putting that together. Sandro's got his hand up.
Hi. Thank you. That was wonderful. I had a couple of questions. One, just the idea of change in Argentina. So I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I wonder if that is motivating you. And then the more important question is about the presentation. You know, I was really struck when I saw the pictures of these natural, artistic, beautiful signals, right? That were reduced to kind of thumbnails, but I would have wanted to see those more. I think the celebration of the signals would be great because as you were speaking, I would have liked to see the things the living things that you're promoting. And I almost have this idea that maybe this whole it is a living system, as you said. It's nonlinear. You have a certain kind of ontological kind of generator, trends to signals to threats to and so on. And so I'd like to see that kind of alive. You know what I mean? I'd like to see that. I'd come here and I'd get a much more visual sense of a larger context so that I can kind of make sense of the signal and noise, et cetera, right? It's difficult. And so I'd like more help there in the website, I guess, because it's extremely interesting and very powerful, and how, how we measure and what we care about measuring and what matters and what doesn't. I mean, that's a big question. So I think this is very important work, and I think its beauty should be put more to the front. And that's all I want to say. And thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I appreciate a lot your feedback.
Hello, everyone. I'm Catalina, the Mercedes partner. Thanks so much, Sandro. And yes, the next step of the platform, this is just an MVP, is to have a lot of different ways of visualize this whole so much information and knowledge that we have gathered, that now it's in a very simple format, in a almost web page format. And our next step is, given that, maybe also visualizing in maps in around the world, and this motion that exists between signals and trends and threats and everything. So yes.
Corf, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, hey guys, I really like the platform that you guys are working on. It's kind of similar to something I've been tinkering with. I wondered, how do you guys do your scanning, right? Like, how do you do your horizon scanning? Is it just manual, like looking each week and then adding things that you find that are interest, or have you got any sort of automated system running that does scans for you? And does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, how do you get the raw materials to then end up making it into your platform? Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna answer your question. We have we develop a basic of scanning method that we have inside. We use Feedly sometimes, and mostly we looking for different kind of contributions with local sense. That is our most important thing that we have, I think, and curatorial sense from territorial lens. That's that we are focused on. Of course, that Catalina says, we always trying to sophisticate this scanning method that we have, but we think that this territorial lens developed with AI, of course, support, and human human lens, territorial lens, and community lens that we construct around the platform also.
Yes, and I wanted to add that we are both a little bit crazy about the signals. So we see them everywhere. We have like 1,500 that are not in the platform, that are in this database that it's still waiting to be processed, because it's still a very manual process. We want to put AI more. But also, as Mercedes says, it's really important for us, like friends and local newspapers, and our own circle, and the circle, for example, of ALAF, that it's our alliance, our network, is seeing and searching. So it's try not to like put what the New York Times is saying, of course, of El País, like going to a lot more like marginal sources.
Maybe I'll just, I see you trying to raise your hand, Philip. I just maybe just interested one thing. So Andrew Korf, who just asked the question, presented a project he's working on in the very first side projects thing, I think it was, where he's building a system to help with that as a just kind of a side project experiment. So one of the things I like to do here is just like make sure people connect around these kinds of things. So Andrew, might be an interesting kind of test case for what you're working on and help these guys. Help these guys. That's all I have to say.
I'd like to be in that circuit too, because this is quite close to my what I call World Tree project, Yggdrasil 2. And when I gap check the two systems against each other, for me, what I'm thinking about is signal development for the individual, and how do I align that inside of the community, local, and then build an outward kind of hierarchy for figuring what local power is, in a sense, I suppose. And the piece that was missing when I looked at yours is the salience of signaling from the end user back to which articles you're developing have relevance. So you might add a little upvote, or if somebody finds an article valuable and keys into it, they could signal that, because it doesn't look like you have that whole circuit built yet. I'm sure you're thinking about that. And for me, how I'm framing this, well, this is, I guess, my question is, how and where do you, and it relates to the signals question, how do you define and discover new signals that are salient to me or any individual, and how do you key and create that correlation between what I'm trying to do and helping me align in effort, so that that's a natural, to me, that should be a natural, coherent, coming together flow. And if we were aware of where we were in the social river, we would just be going with a current, and there would be a strength to that that's sort of diffused by the current information landscape. Everybody's paddling in different directions. So I see what you're making as giving us a much higher view of what all the pawns on the board are sort of doing, and that pawn feeling is the problem, because we don't have self-agency, and so for me it's about that. And can you just speak to where that lives in your system?
If I understand you well, you are talking about like how do you navigate, like from your own perspective, like personally the platform.
Yeah, because when I go to it now, it does look like very interesting articles, but there's a lot of them. So
Yeah.
I don't have the time to read all of that
Yes.
material and find my signal
Yes,
inside of that. And so how are you thinking of that problem? Because it's essentially what's missing, in the sense, for me, is that ability to pull in that aligning signal between my community and the people, so you feel connected through a system rather than overwhelmed by information or choice, I guess.
Absolutely. I think in the future we have to integrate like an AI algorithm, something like social media, where from all these signals you can see what's important to you, what you have been researching, what you have been as an active user in the platform. As I say, this is really basic state in the platform. It's really not a platform now, it's a web page, really. Like the research is very deep, like really
I understand, because
Yeah.
I resonate very much with the operating system keyword you threw out earlier on, and I feel like that's what we're talking around. But yeah.
We just built this with a 2-year research that we have been done in work in progress, and we put this on the web, and now we can show it. Like today, we can show it. We can show our idea. We can show our concept, but the technology is really simple. That's like the next step right now that we need.
Once you know where you're going, it's easier to know what to build, for sure.
Yes. I think that it's so much interesting that you said to us. Yes, the next phase that we present before is generate a living intelligence, and living intelligence that can democratize foresight and democratize territory capacity building. I think that something that you said, and where the main or the users can detect change, uncover patterns, guide to actions with all of these patterns that we today have, and constantly add new ones. So I think, but we
are
don't
you
want to lose.
are you seeding it with intelligence that it goes and discovers for you, or how does it find the articles? Are you finding them and giving it like anchors to find and like this is the same question we had a minute ago. How do you discover the horizon?
It's it's very intuitive for us, but it's so easy. We really have, for us, is we have a lot, and we see signals everywhere. That like the least problem that we have is signals.
But how does your system
we have
discover
a
the signals?
feedly.
Us seeing signals is one thing. The system learning and just cultivating these actionable signals, that's what it seems like you're saying. And so I want to understand that what you think is that mechanism. I have my own answers, of course, but
We have a feedly with 1,000 sources. So there we have
I
a lot.
see.
But I am independent. So apart from that, we still everywhere we also we have this the eye very trained in what we are doing of the collective well-being ethical behind everywhere everything that we are scanning. So we have this lens that it's like already very solid and
Tuned.
grounded,
Yeah.
and we map and scan with this feedly, but also it's we have so much it's not so methodological because I think it's the most intuitive part of the work that we do for us. Like it's really
So
the
would you
the
say you're
challenge.
amplifying your editorial skill? You're cultivating the feedly, and then you've got the lens and you're making a sharper lens. Would you articulate it that way right now? Is that fair? Because that
Yes.
resonates well with my model, where your individual intelligence is amplified and creates a tangible signal in your medium, right? So
Yes.
would you agree with that statement?
Yes. And also we are open now to collaborations. We open a section that is called the signals of las señales de in Spanish. And we are inviting a lot of different people to also scan their signals and be part of this intelligence.
It's beautiful to me because it's very much the same questions and problems I'm thinking about for years, but such a different shape and form and piece of the puzzle. It's all different pieces of the puzzle. And as we make these things, they're going to start snapping together in ways we just are going to be very surprised by, I think, because none of them are complete yet. They're all parts still, you know?
Yes, of course.
Beautiful work. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the collection of signals, and one of the things that a blog is that is kind of disparate between the reader and the writer is when the writer writes it, it's a sequential sort of process of writing one post and then the next post and then the next post. But when somebody reads it, a lot of the time they're coming back to it. They're coming to it months or years after, and so it then becomes kind of a static whole of all of the things there. And so sort of treating both sides of that, the process and the outcome is really interesting. I'd be interested in, after you have this much after this time, after 1 year, after 2 years, after 5 years, like what does that look like? How does that structuring, do things fall off? Like what are those things? You mentioned AI. As a self-professed hater of AI, I would encourage you to look at not just saying AI will solve things, but like what is it that a social algorithm actually is? Algorithms, even AI ones, are still designed and they still serve certain purposes. They have different criteria and goals and priorities. And so I would love to see that. I'm also, you mentioned putting things on a map, putting things on a timeline. I would love to see and for you to hear a little bit more about what exactly those things kind of look like, the dimensionalities and the way that you kind of um you envision that kinds of things can be part of it. And one of the reasons that I'm very interested in that is because uh, I am responsible for designing the way that the web, the HTML pages and things like that actually break out into space, the 3D shapes of objects and the dimensionality of that. I do that for Apple, like officially and with the World Wide Web Consortium. So to the extent that you're interested in futures and the display of this kind of loose signal information, I would be really interested in where you want to take it, what you think that this kind of experience and collection of information wants to be. So yeah. So yeah, to that end, like what does it want to be? What are the sort of the ways in which you would expect people to be able to use this in 3 years?
Oh my God, what an extensive question. Our plan, o sea, I don't know, this is MVP model. I think that we construct something that came from intuition at first, and for the main thing that related or create an intelligence and collective intelligence for collective well-being that is important to shift the new or emerge a new narrative from a market intelligence that comes from something like linear and create something that can came from, I don't know, from the colonial structures that emerge in everywhere, from a feminist lens that emerge in everywhere, mostly in Latin America territories, and co-create something that um, push forward that something that we need to make that shift. So in terms of projections, I think that we develop a pattern, an out pattern that we need to, of course, sophisticate and put AI. But the main things here is we don't want to lose that ethical AI that we can construct, representative, inclusive, territorial, that we think that is the most powerful thing that we have. I don't know if this answers your question, but Kata, I don't know if you want to add something.
No, I think how people navigate all this knowledge is the key. Like really, because we want to like people to get out of the noise of the media noise. And at the moment, the platform is also a lot of information. So as Philip, I think, said, we need that personalization, different ways of visualization, but it's still in progress. We need to do user interviews. We need a more of development to really say this is the way that the platform will look.
Well,
Yes,
you're
that's what you
welcome
are.
to collaborate with me. And what I'm doing is I would describe in database terms as creating a set of strange attractors for each citizen in my system. And those strange attractors serve to leverage the praxis between all of the other members of the hive. And so I'm really not interested in bad actors. And I have this problem that I focus strictly on what I think people want instead of what bad people will do. And so I've focused my mathematics entirely on supporting that. And thus bad actors just simply don't find traction in my system anymore. And so ability for one person or two people to find signals creates a lattice for everybody else to vote into it and find their terminology, in a sense, for those issues. Because in a sense, how we find those horizons is by discovering how to parse them into language. And so you're essentially a spear point of languaging these issues for people by discovering them using your filters or lenses, as you call them, but bringing that into a place where you're the model actor, the first user of that AI's intelligence system, to clarify what you're considering synergy and alignment. And that gives you a leg up and an insight because you have the agency. But once you qualify that, you'll give that tool away, I assume. And so how those strange attractors are configured, if I'm upvoting an article in your system and that logs those keywords into my record and makes those articles come easier towards me, I'm sort of swimming and opening up rivers of information for myself in a way. So maybe that's a way to build some adjacency between the two frameworks. But you're also let's chat more offline so we're not bothering everybody. But I've got the personal AI flow dragon. I call them semantic mirror flow dragons. So, and they're like an adaptive chameleon that learns your myth language. And so that half of it is the other half of the problem. How do everybody's worldview is so freaking different. And so that shattered quality, I'm trying to find the membrane glue for. And anyway, I love what you're doing. It's exciting.
Awesome. Thanks, Random. Mateus.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Really nice to see. My question or comment rather is much more basic rather than the flowing mirror dragons, unfortunately, and that's more like in what would you mentioned like business idea, right? So what I'm curious, what's the in 3 years time using Randall's time frame? What's the ideal situation for you as a business, right? Because what you have right now, it looks like it's a curated list of signals, right? So it borders on journalism, on research, on curating bunch of feeds, and that's like a really good like foresight consultancy business type of thing. But it looks like you rather want to provide a system for other people to use, right? So those two are not mutually exclusive, but where would you like to be? What do you want to accomplish in like 2-3 years time? Like a good outcome of it?
I think no. Our business model it's users in the platform, subscription. That's what we want. So we maybe can do consultancy also, but like a side thing. The main it's like the strategic intelligence of World Economic Forum, but from a completely different perspective. I always say it's like the way round of strategic intelligence from Latin America, from a feminine perspective, from ecological, indigenous, etc. But the main business is subscription for the platform.
Okay, so and the people who are doing this would be like academic researchers, corporate research,
designers.
Okay.
Futurists, non-futurists, emerging futurists. I think we want to develop the potential that creative comes from future lens that and not be restricted like futurist, not futurist person. I think that everyone can access with this. Democratize future thinking, creativity that comes from this method.
Because I think one thing on the horizon, if what you're what you're aiming to offer is not so much your personal curation, but just like access to these sources, then like in a very short time, I mean, all these lawsuits for scraping news sites and all that will, I imagine will affect also RSS feeds and every like news conglomeration and so on. So like if you have a robot text and you're gonna honor the robot text, then suddenly your feeds are gonna be troubled, right? So that's gonna put a lot of work on you just to manually go through all the data, right? But if that doesn't happen, then you're suddenly competing with AI agents that perhaps can do this, like bypassing your platform altogether. So I was curious how you navigating that. Yeah, sorry, that wasn't, that last thing wasn't a question. That was just an observation. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you for that.
It reminds me of the conversation when we were starting a software company for education and we decided to make a platform toolkit rather than a platform of curriculum material. And by making a toolkit, we empowered others to make their own curriculum material, basically. Matthias, that seems like what you're sort of saying. Is it your signal and your tool and your center that you're cultivating so you find subscribers to that, or are you building, a leg up for discovering that signal yourself?
Yeah, I guess like from a business perspective, right? So is it, how resilient is the model? So if suddenly we have AI agents that can scrape all local press in Latin and South America, then the access to the data isn't that as important. Then the curatorial bit or the prompting will be more important, right? So, but if you're creating this database as a to give yourself credibility in the space, then that targets more towards a consulting role, like the Futures Institute in Finland and so on. I was thinking, so I was mostly thinking about that.
Yes.
Sorry. I have sort of a similar. It's not a question. It's more like I'm also wondering because I look at your MVP. It's not very minimal. I mean, you've obviously spent quite a bit of time putting it together. It's not like a skeleton of something. And it got me really excited when you were doing your walkthrough and just seeing all the material, and it was very legible at one level. By that I mean, oh yeah, okay, I sort of almost immediately got what you were trying to do. So I had a really, there was a point of entry for me to understand and comprehend. And at the same time, I was kind of like running alongside this. Actually, there were three things that were going on. The first thing was like very quick read, very easy to read. I get what's going on here, and it's almost like I wanted to, I signed up right away. I wanted to kind of luxuriate in it. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this. Oh, is the link there? Cool. Okay, we'll share the link in the Discord. Other people will experience it. I'll be able to come back to it when I have a little bit of time and all that. And that was really exciting. Alongside of just the visuals, which I think kind of Philip mentioned. And then the other little bit of what was going on in my head um, was uh, I've been working on something. It is not similar, but it is similar insofar as it's like an archive of all the material in the Discord. And I've been playing with this for like years. Like, what is another way to translate all the wonderful extemporaneous conversations and link sharing in the Discord that provides another view onto what's going on the Discord. And part of that is because it's like there are people who I know would love to be a part of it, but are kind of like, anti-Discord. It just doesn't, it's not legible to them. They're like, they call it Discord because it's discordant. It's confusing. I can't deal with that. I get headaches. I don't know how to track it. I don't know kids these days. How do they even, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, oh, yeah, it's a fair point. Could I translate that into something that was a little bit more manageable? It was a little bit more like a digest. And so I think about that. Like I said, I've been thinking about that for years and building all different kinds of things, none of which I've, released. I've just been playing with it, trying to see and feel, is there something that is worth putting out there so that people can, make sense of what's going on? Because I think I mean, this is self-serving, but there are amazing conversations going on there. There's amazing link sharing that's going on in there. And also I can't always track it. I try to read everything, but it's really hard. And so I always like, oh, I want to get back to that. I want to get back to that. I want to get back to that. But still, even if I have that impulse and that desire, and even if I could get back to it, I don't know what the right reading ritual is or the right digesting ritual is. It's like I want a what's the restaurant metaphor? Like I want the sampling menu, where they come out and they just give you a little bit of everything. Maybe that's one metaphor I start thinking about, and like what would that be? And then the other thing that I think about, which kind of came to my mind working on this grant proposal, and part of it is like, is wanting to really emphasize the uh it's sort of like youth, like doing futures with young adults, like teaching young adults how to imagine and how to think about the future, how giving them tools to think about. There's this thing called the future. How do you think about it? Not trying to impose anything on them, but saying, hey, did you know there's this thing called the future, and it's really important, and here are different ways in which you can consider it and reflect on it. And part of the most exciting aspect of imagining what that might be is me trying to understand what are the reading rituals, reading practices of youth. Like I don't want to assume they are like me and consume like me. Clearly they don't. Because sometimes I look at what they consume, I'm kind of like, what? How does this make, I watch my nephews. I was just hanging out with them a few weeks ago. I'm just like, wait, what do you, how, huh? You know? And so why am I saying that? I'm saying that because I wonder about these kind of resources that, like, beautiful resources that you guys are putting together that I'm very much struggling to put together, and trying to think of how do we adapt those to different ways of making sense of what's going on in the world. Now, I don't think, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with what you're doing by any means, but that was like the third thing that came to my mind that I really wanted to wonder about is, are there other ways? I think it's been, Mateus kind of brought it up, and other people have brought it up. I think a lot of people Andrew brought it up, like, oh, this looks like this kind of, trend spotting sort of site. There's a pattern to them. Here they are in a grid. Here's some tags, semantic tags that indicate what this is and where this comes from, that kind of stuff. And I'm looking at them, and you guys mentioned AI. I gotta talk to Brandon because I didn't know he was like anti-AI. We're gonna have to have a sidebar because I'm very curious, because Brandon is exceptionally smart, and it shocked me. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I started wondering, like, what are the other ways that you could tell the stories about these things that are very important to you, that you might be thinking about, you might not be, it doesn't matter. It's more just kind of like, hey, I mean, should this be like a manga graphic novel? Like, think about that, or all the other transformations that could take place where stories, or whatever other kinds of ways that you could represent these worlds, might exist. Is it I don't even know what they are, because I don't know, because I'm still trying to figure it out. But I feel like that, to a certain degree, is an aspect of, I'm not telling you what to do by any means. I'm just sort of saying, like, ways in which us, our kind of generations, recognize the value of like trend spotting. But is that too 1990s? Are we well beyond that? Are we doing trend spotting because that's what we learned in school, or that we learned at the first brand marketing agency that we happened to work at before we kind of turned our attention elsewhere? You do trend spotting. That's how you figure out what's next. But is it still? I just wonder that. Anyway, that's it's not a question. It's a wandering thought.
I think it's like super important what you say, because I think the real challenge here is how do we really connect with people with this information, because we are in the infoxication area. So we are giving, of course, more information, And people are, as you say, like young people, but I even think not so young people are getting into really different ways of connecting with knowledge. So I think it's a crucial point. Like, how do you really get insights with different knowledge? How do you make decisions with different knowledge, etc.?
Julian,
Brand,
it makes me
sorry.
it makes me think about what my movie friend Al Maisels, who's the guy who shot Grey Gardens and the Beatles videos. He was the original camera guy for the Beatles, and so we were talking about it, the evolution. This was back in 2000, and he was getting interested in what he called tone poems. He was just going around New York with his little camera and shooting little vignettes on the bus of like somebody struggling to find a seat or just urban moments. He was losing interest in long form, losing interest in narratives, and shifting towards short form visual experiences. And that's was a presage to TikTok, really. And I think there's a drift. You can sort of see it as a lack to earlier media in terms of giving you a first person experience, which cameras managed to pull off, at least a sense of that's more first person than reading a newspaper. And so I think there's this deep shift towards that shorter, more intense, in a sense, direct experience, mediated direct experience. That's what you brought up in me.
Brandon.
So I put my hand up and down like a million times at this point because I feel like my mind is going all over the place. I feel like a lot of this, and part of that is because I feel like it's been relevant to some things I've kind of wanted to share, and then it kind of turned away from that. But I think like I have this intuitive feeling that some of this work I've been doing lately is kind of related to a lot of the ideas we're talking about here. I've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years, like trying to understand mental models around creativity and how do we build insights and how do we like interact with creativity as both a tangible artifact and an intangible artifact. And when I say creativity, I mean like, yes, how do we consume signals and how do we understand things in general surrounding a context of like a particular like point of work, and how do we turn that into, how do we take these signals that are coming in from different directions and build it into something, whether that's an insight or whether that's an artifact or whether it's something else. And with systems like this, as we've talked about, like how do we take all of these things and then like build something out of it? I feel like there's a lot of room to get overwhelmed in certain areas, and there's a lot of room to also like go down rabbit holes. And one thing I've been thinking about is how do we interact with ideas over time? David Lynch kind of talks about ideas as like you're fishing, and you catch an idea as if it were like a fish, and then you can pull it up, and then it turns into like something else. You could go prepare it, you could go cook it, but then I'm kind of thinking about that metaphor also in the way of like over time, instead of like fishing with a rod and hook, I almost kind of view it as like you're leaving a net in the water. Fish will swim in and fish will swim out. And sometimes you see that the fish is in your net, but you haven't, like, either you don't want to, or you like maybe miss something before you pull it up, and now you have that idea. And this is all going somewhere where I've been thinking about like, how do we, especially around advances in technology and how we use AI in creative situations, what are frameworks and tools we can use to design systems that help us interact with ideas and build something that is more dependent on the context and our intuition around what those ideas are. I kind of, where this has kind of gone is like a model around like what are the roles of AI in creativity. And I know there's like I feel like there's some contention around there, but when we think about AI and the artifacts it produces as a result of the generative like underlying foundational architecture, it produces like patterns of the data that it's trained on. It produces patterns of language if it's an LLM. So it's kind of hollow in that sense. But when we think about like what makes art meaningful or what makes insights meaningful, it's that interaction between artifacts and like the context or desires we have as people. So if we build a system that rolls around pulling context both from you and the surrounding environment that you're producing something within. So for example, if we're building futures and we take all of the signals within a system like this and then take the context around our ideas or our desires around what we want to do with these signals, we feed that into an AI system, and now it has, and that could be through either having it interview us and ask us questions to gather that kind of qualitative context, as well as like going and pulling out pieces of information from different databases or something. So the first role of like AI within creative context like this is pulling, but then a lot of the time just gathering information is not enough. So a second role could potentially be like pushing. And when it takes in outside context or it uses its bias in generative variability and how we interact with it, it's able to push potential like views or pieces of information or contexts or contextual like ideas onto us that shape how we interact with the idea in the first place. And then lastly, there's like the obvious, like it produces something out of this intermingling of pushing and pulling and playing around with these ideas. And I'm wondering if there's something here around, I mean, I feel like I ranted a bunch there, but I feel like that's kind of where my thoughts have been floating around within this conversation. When we have so many like points of information to interact with as we think about what we want to do with it and produce not only like an artifact or like an output of that interaction with the medium, how do we build something that actually helps us like explore ideas both within ourselves and coming from the outside within these like collected databases of information or signals? Like I said, I put my hand up and down because my ideas were all over the place, but did any of that make sense?
Of course, yes. Every idea that you said, everything served to us to create more ideas around this. I mean, like, I think that we are between, in fact, I don't know, I also read the commenters, the chat on this conversation, around this conversation, and I think that is great. For example, I don't know, I love the way that you imagine that could be something like Sabrina says, choose your own adventure books, or what the outputs around here. I mean, from the design design artifacts came from different kind of knowledge, different kind of perspective. I think that the most powerful idea here that said Julian is like, this is not an hermetic way to see how future is. It's a way to create more futures around this, for different kind of perspective, from different kind of lens that mostly are hegemonized with one vision. And this is, I think, that's our challenge around us, how to think more new strategic ways to create or co-create something that affected to us in a collective wellness being that we need in that's, I think that's the shift point that we need. We also
There's a wild analogy from biology here that's just ringing in my head. When termites need to make more room, they get, the chemistry gets over compressed and they go into a mode. Everything's chemical, and they start throwing, pickup trucks around, grains of sand, boulders, and until the pickup trucks land in a pile. I say pickup trucks because they're just giant compared to the termites, right? It would be like us picking up pickup trucks and tossing them around in a parking lot. And when they land in a pile of a certain shape, they get excited and they they gather around that pile and they build it up into a column until it gets a certain height, and then you just ignore it and they go on throwing pickup trucks, and they do that over and over until they get two columns that are close to each other, and then they build an arch between them, and then they continue throwing pickup trucks until they get another column and another arch and another column and another arch, and then they have a roof and a new layer of the hive. And I think there's a sort of like mechanical process to what we're doing here, and I love Brandon's physicality. What's the physics of how does the information or the signals move in a system? And so these AI tools are just new ways for gathering that horizon intelligence. But how do they become signals and flow to me or roll away from me? What is the soft good format, but that's flexible. Is it an adventure book, or is it how do you like your signals? That's your flavor. But the ability to reformat that flavor when it reaches my filter then becomes, completely plastic as far as I can tell in a short order. And so the information still has to get across the membrane. This is very analogous to our own physical situation with eyes and ears and interpretive frameworks. We're building some sort of prosthetic. I don't understand yet, but yeah, there's my rant. Keep it up, Brandon.
Christine.
I'm sorry.
Who is that? Who just said that?
I said I passed it to Brandon. Is that what you mean?
Oh yeah, Brandon, do you want to raise your hand and we'll let Christine go next?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I was thinking that as you build out your community of users, if you're thinking about the subscription model, it could be cool to have community calls and then activities around the content. And one of the things could be like a collective sense making workshop or collaborative sense making workshop where you could go in and come with a theme and go through the signals together and interpret them together. And that would be a way to have folks engage with the content, perhaps like before this, turning it into whatever visualization, like a step before that, and just see what surfaces for people. Anyway, it was just like a little idea of like, there's so many cool ways. Maybe it's just a matter of starting to create a list of cool ways of get people to engage with the content, but also engage with each other. Because I'm thinking, like, one of the things I love about these calls is just like the types of people who show up and all the different ideas and ways of thinking. Like that could be also your ability to convene people around that could be a very cool additional, value add over.
Yes, of course. Of course. We thought about this a lot. We constantly think about how this can make intelligent collective well-being of science and emerging trends. That this is our lens, but we want to co-create this framework of different kind of trends that we detect this, and we also have 80 more on carpet. But I think that is a constantly exercise that we want to open. In fact, Catalina's mentioned about these strategic collections that we made and answer for the signals of someone that we also start to add to our radar signals, the signals of whatever, for different kind of people, different kind of lens that we want to add, and then develop a new frameworks around that different kind of signals. That's a work that we made with ALAF, Asociación Latina de Futuros from Brazil, around four big four big themes that they motivate to that community, and the powerful of scanning of detect new signals around that kind of new ideas around and then make a sense-making space to detect what trends are emerging around these narratives.
In our senses.
Sorry,
the
Philip.
only-
Let's try to. I'm going to try to discipline the
Yeah,
Q&A.
okay, I'm fine with that.
Brendan had a
Yeah, and
question.
actually, Sabrina, if you want to go ahead of me, I was originally going to respond to Philip around what he was saying, but I really like where this thread of conversation is going.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in I think I would double click on how those, like, I think Philip, you said like those on ramps, and it's more just from professional experience working with folks that like push out foresight intelligence platforms, and the amount of people that have to be trained as like customer success partners to just teach people and build rituals around how you actually use this content. Just as I see it, I was like, it's this richness of data and more than just clicking through. Like the assessment that platform developers on the back end, or the ones that I've worked with, are going like, oh, well, they visited the site this many times, so they're good. It doesn't mean that they're using it. And the amount of time that I would often be brought in from a strategic perspective to try and pull out what are some of those questions or those priorities. Like, I think of how does this become that richness of data, but that coach, that like gym trainer or something like that, that's helping you, and like the yes and becomes, and then how do you tie it to Julian's way of understanding like how you consume the information, and then it becomes something that is ritualistic, and also something that people see tangibly back to like what they're trying to explore, whether it's an individual, but at least from like a company perspective, and those that I've worked with and continue to talk to, like the biggest thing is that they buy a lot of intelligence, and then they don't know shit of what to do with it. And then they pay people more to help guide them through that. And so like I think of like how does like an agent just exist to ask questions and be that coach in some sort of way to pull out some of those things and be that really curious, unsure, not knowing, and sending them down rabbit holes in whatever consumptive patterns or sort of leanings you have. And then the last thing I will say is like I think there's always an element, because of what you have focusing on, like how do we build in some of these signals from the global south. I think there's something appeal there of how is everything you're doing not having folks lead to the echo chamber of what they are looking at and pull on a different thread. So like that for every three that say this is where it's going, you've got that edge that says, and there's also this sort of point of friction. There's this other sort of piece to it, in terms of where I see people being able to gain even more value from the intelligence to do something with it or be fully or holistically aware.
Well, did y'all have any response to that before I jump in? Because
the response is your response.
So I think these are really, really interesting concepts. And I know like design thinking is kind of a very contentious topic, but one way I've been trained in running design thinking or like facilitating design thinking has been not as a framework of getting a lot of design done very, very quickly, but as a means of like helping people communicate more deeply and understand that everybody has, when we think about a concept, everybody has an individual understanding of what that concept is. And those can have overlapping patterns, or they can have very like diverging patterns. And the point of design thinking, or the point of facilitated workshop, is to help everyone observe this concept, observe it both individually and as a group, observe each other's perspectives around what this concept is, and then come together to build like a potential shared truth around what this concept or object is, so that then they can act on it. And when we think about like rituals and how we get everyone together to respond to these signals, whether that's through a theme of gathering of these signals for any particular week, or whether that's through like open discussion that you then intentionally dive down into signals around, I think that's a really interesting like format of playing with these collections of signals from a human-to-human like collaborative standpoint. And what I was going to respond to Philip about earlier is kind of like when we think about agents and like computer intelligences, when we interact with these kind of concepts in a similar way, facilitation is a really big like inspiration for how I've thought about what the interaction design of this could look like. Would it be all right if I shared like a couple screens of an app I've been designing?
Please.
Yeah. So I've been playing around with a dream journaling app that uses AI not as a means to like interpret your dreams for you, but it helps you understand the signals or symbols within your dreams that occur over time. So you go through, you type in what your dream is, and then you go, either both you and an AI system can take the content and extract symbols from it. So symbols are just things that are occurring in your dream that you find important to you. These could be, so like me, in the stream I put down, it could be an oracle or a person. It could be another person that showed up, my partner, me. Locations could be like a restaurant that was in the dream, a city that I referenced, a country that I was in, and then let me actually expand this out a little. Objects, themes, actions, just things that appear within your dream. And the idea is not that it will interpret things for you, but it helps you kind of more deeply analyze your dreams, with the output being something like it does qualitative analysis. So like on your homepage, it might say some recurring symbols within your dreams are you are often unable to complete a task in your dream, or you often interact with malfunctioning items, or you often dream about like authority figures like teachers or bosses. And diving even a little deeper into like particular dream analysis rather than just like over time, it facilitates you to think more deeply about your dream, so you are producing deeper insights, not the AI. It asks pointed questions around it. So like within this dream, just a little bit of context, an oracle-like figure talked to my girlfriend about her future, and the oracle had symbols on their masks. So if you had to describe them to someone, how would you interpret the meaning? This is intended to help you better like reflect on, okay, well, what do I actually physically know about the dream? How did I feel when I saw the mask up close to me? Was it scary or was it calm? Blah, blah, blah. And these are like, again, just like different ways we can interact with ideas through this kind of interface. So like explore the symbols, reflect on your emotions around it, change your perspective. Like how might the dream be interpreted from the perspective of a character within that dream? Or what are some, how do you like build personal associations or remember like details around it? This obviously all has to do with like this particular app and like dreaming, but I feel like a similar kind of interaction pattern, which kind of focuses on so this is kind of how I first thought of the interaction design itself. And sorry, can you still see my screen? Do you see the example interaction flow? Cool.
Yep, we're seeing it.
So you start out by writing your dream. So you have the dream journal entry, the legends down here. So that is like the input data. Then the user can either highlight sentences or save sentences, but the AI can perform actions like collecting symbols within the sentences, recognizing symbols, classifying them into different like categories, and then generating a list of symbols within their categories referencing the sentences that the user can then either choose to keep or discard. So all of this said, I feel like a similar kind of interaction pattern, if we're thinking about like, how do we help people further interpret signals or work on like think through their interpretation of signals, could be applied here.
Dude, you have to share this in side projects.
Well, I knew there was open space today, so this is kind of what actually I was planning on like sharing deeper ideas around like
No,
what
I'm gonna twist your arm and put you on the calendar for next. You're like, by the
Amazing.
way, I just wanted to, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm down.
we're into it, Brandon. I love it.
Thank you. This is, I mean, all of these conversations are super cool. And when we think about like interaction with ideas or concepts in creative ways, I mean, it's so fun to just explore like what does that look like?
Kemp. Thank you, Brandon. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brandon, that was really cool. I've just been like writing down a bunch of these words so I'm not really sure how all this will come together, but Julian, your comment about like the sampling menu, and then Sabrina, you made a couple comments that I just left this startup where we had sort of a real world implosion of exactly what you were talking about, where a company just bought, or a startup just acquired a bunch of information or tech and had no idea what to do with it. And my role was to basically build and bridge the digital and physical or build and bridge products for Gen Z. And whenever the three C-suite guys would go and pitch to potential investors, they over-explained it. They were all ex-Parson professors. And this presentation, while so beautiful, reminds me so much of them, because our in-house deck would just be article after article. The website behind the scenes that we all had was just, they would be at home all weekend just making all of these signals, all of these articles. And for me, it would geek out. It was like a library, which I love a library, like an old library or a new library, like any form of a library, like of an archive, whether it be a fashion library, a product library, or a book, like I'm all about. But what I've learned is that the majority of people, especially an investor, hate a library, right? Like they don't want to look at a library, and they certainly don't want to read an article. So they just kept coming back from these pitch meetings with no investment for several reasons. But eventually I had to kind of communicate to them that they were over explaining. Like at one pitch, they would go in with printed out articles that they had written from the archive library of the website. It was just like comical at one point of like how much information they wanted to communicate. All amazing, right? Like all based on really fascinating stuff. But these guys, they came back from a pitch in Nashville with a bunch of country music people, and the faces were just like complete blank stares. So my attempt to try to communicate with them, which I think actually went really well, they were all gay men, are gay men. We started using this term like you have to pitch like it's a dick pic, because a dick pic is super simple and super basic, right? And it communicates one thing very quickly. And I've now started adopting a very similar approach with my futures attempt, because I will overcomplicate or over intellectualize or overthink something very, I'll just do that to the end of the day. But I've also, for my own good, have to bring it back to a level of like, if you're looking to create a community, or you're looking to onboard a user, or you're looking to instigate curiosity, like, yes, there's an algorithm, and yes, there's all these things, but if there can't be a simple format where somebody can, like a dick pic, see it and understand it within seconds. And you can, dating profiles, I think, of any sort actually are a great analogy for this. But if you get a picture and someone has sunglasses on and the photo is 50 feet or 50 yards away, you're immediately suspicious. If it takes you, 5 seconds to comb through a library of articles and chunks of paragraphs of text, whatever the signal is, as brilliant as it may be, I'm uninterested. So I find this to be like my detox of the academic world a little bit the last year, where I'm trying to embrace the dick pic and of the futures world. And without it being too crass, I'm finding the beauty in that being able to communicate more effectively to people what actually I find to be beautiful about futuring or creativity. So I offer that up just because, you know, there's incredible work out there by so many brilliant people, but if it's not communicated to the user that you're trying to get it to, what's the point, right? We can sit here and be like, all these algorithms. Also, the algorithms, like, you know, I think Mateus brought it up. I think Brandel's brought it up. Like, so many times these things are, I mean, they are programmed by a human, right? So like they aren't a magical unicorn of, you know, the metaverse is not a space odyssey, right? Like it's a thing. So there's a reality to it. I think the actual magic is in the user, not the whatever. So grounding it in that for me has been really helpful. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
I love the dick pic. It resonates with my peanut, which is the thing that you drop and it causes a reflexive pivot, and the bird can't but help watch that peanut fall to the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's worked for me in so many ways. And if they're not, I mean, and women always, cis women or trans women always have like a very visceral reaction because it's like, ugh, you know, or gay men want a dick pic. But there's so many types of dating profile pics where you're just like, yeah, that evokes an immediate sense of suspicion, but people want instant communication to elicit the next reaction or the next type of curiosity. And it for better or for worse. So I find it to be an interesting thread to pull out for myself.
Yes, thank you for that advice. I love it. Definitely so real and so it's a challenge for us how to communicate this kind of project, not in a normal way, but yes, in a beautiful or different kind of pitch or dick pic that we can create it. Yes. Well, we made for this a traditional or not so traditional kind of pitch that we delivered today. But I don't know. I think that we are here to improve everything that we have today. So thank you for that recommendation.
Awesome. Brandel, do you want to bring us home and then we'll conclude?
Yeah, I would really wanted to echo Kemp's notion of like people's allergy to sort of library bibliographic kind of resources when they're kind of not accustomed to it. It's the same as the sort of the paralysis of the blank page for people who either have sort of creative writer's block or they're just not that way inclined in general. And you know, it's sort of I think I will actually make a presentation on how and why I hate AI. And so I'll look for that in the future. But you know, one of the things that comes from is that intelligence fundamentally is inactive. It's for actions, and so when the mere presence of resources doesn't tell you what to do with them, then that is a problem for people who don't already have an implicit momentum for it. So that's, you know, I think one of the things that would be really, really cool to see with Katari Andes to get a way in which you can kind of come up with, you know, story starters, the momentum. What are the things that people would do with that would get out of it? What kind of actions should they take by virtue of the things that you're showing and you're providing to them? So yeah, I just plus one to Kemp basically, but yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, you guys, for sharing that. I'm glad we got an extended opportunity to really build out and help you think about thinking through it. Definitely keep us in the loop. You know, I think we'll obviously be sharing this stuff, but then it'd be nice to sort of track along and see how things evolve and develop. Um, I like the something you said early on about just it being not the stuff that you might find at the World Economic Forum and playing as a, I think, you know, if you have, anytime I learned from a friend of mine who's like a really very clever marketing guy, and he said like the market, the thing that the marketer's like fantasy is to have a product to market that is anti the other product. because it provides such a great opportunity to distinguish yourself from it, so that they like underdog products, things that are not like the other big guy, you know, Apple and IBM. Was just watching Halt and Catch Fire and catch him rewatching that, and they talk about Apple's 1984 advertisement where where they're all the conforming 1984 Orson Welles kind of characters, and then the one woman comes and throws a giant sledgehammer at the thing. So simple, but one of those things where it's like, um, tomorrow will not be like today, which is amazing. Anyway, thanks everyone for showing up. Appreciate you. You're gonna get a little note with asking you for just to click a link. Please do that if you have a chance, so we can keep things going. All right, everyone, enjoy
Thank
your
you so
weekend.
much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much.
Weekend. See you next
Have a nice
Friday.
weekend. Cheers.
Bye bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye.